Hello everyone, welcome back to Naomi's Bookshelf. Today we are going to talk about my mid-month wrap-up. So far April, I've read 8 books, and of those 8 books, 4 of them are arcs, and I am very happy about that. I am really excited that I read the books I actually requested and read them promptly. I requested them about a week or so ago, and I managed to read them right after requesting them, so it was very exciting, and I was still on that high of they sounded great, so I read them when I wanted to, and I have been still getting out of my slump from last month, so it was nice to be reading something and also reading books I was really excited for when I was excited for them. So, of the books I have read, one of the first books I finished this month was Sense and Second Degree Murder. This one's by Tirzah Price, and I really enjoyed this one. This one's kind of like a companion book to Pride and Premeditation. This one is about, Sense and Second Degree Murder is about the Dashwood sisters who are trying to investigate if their father died of natural causes or not. Spoiler alert, not. Not really. But in this one, Eleanor is a chemist or trying to become a chemist. She does a lot of chemistry related things and mostly investigating how certain things react with each other. We also have Marianne, who is an investigator, and she's trying to investigate and interrogate or have discussions with people about how they could be related to other crimes. It's very interesting. I really love the mystery. I thought it was so brilliant, and I gave it 5 stars. I think that this is such an interesting story because we all know who the bad guys are in Jane Austen's world, and yet she's fooled me. Tirzah Price fooled me again with how the characters were developed. I liked how none of them were out of character, but they also had their own story, and it just felt so authentic. So I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend checking that one out. It just came out this month on the 5th, I believe, so that one's one I would highly recommend reading. I got an advanced reader copy, which was read by a robot, so I did not love my reading experience, but the book is not to be blamed for that. I imagine if you get an audiobook, it will not be read by a robot, so you'll be fine either way. But my reading experience was not like any others. Another arc that I finished was Movieland by Lee Goldberg. This is the 4th book in the Eve Ronan series. I can't speak too much about this one because it definitely follows the plot lines of the previous books, and this is a series that you can't read out of order, but love this series. Eve Ronan is a detective who got skyrocketed into her field because of publicity stunt. Essentially, not that she intended to do a publicity stunt, but her department used what she did as a publicity stunt, essentially. That sounds really complicated. I'm sorry. But they have used her as a real good publicity tool. And it's not always worked out in the favor of her co-workers. Now, in this book in particular, she and her partner, who is named Duncan, they are working to solve a mystery shooting in the park. And it is very interesting. I also really loved in this one how we continue to see more of Eve's character and how of her relationships they are impacted. I can't really speak too much of the book because so much of it is entangled with other plot lines, but I really will say I really love this one. I give it another 5 stars, and I will say Lee Goldberg got me again. It was a really good mystery, and I thoroughly loved every second of it, and I highly recommend the series. I'm so glad that I have picked up these books and loved every moment of it. Also, for this particular book, I am putting this one in my TBR clue game as the prompt of a clue-like character, as Duncan's nickname is Dunkin' Donuts, and he's a detective, so I thought that's a perfect clue-like character name. I also saw that the next book in the Misty River romance series was out and on as an arc, so I grabbed that because it comes out May 3rd, I believe, which is called Turn to Me. This is by Becky Wade, and I read it and loved it, gave it also 5 stars. I am so happy with the arcs that I requested and read. So, Turn to Me is about Luke, who he is like one of the black sheep, essentially, of this group of friends who we've been reading about in this series. And they are books that kind of follow each other, but they're more like companion as opposed to you need to read them in order kind of thing. So this one follows Luke, who was in prison, and as soon as he gets out, he has gone to this pet veterinarian, not pet veterinarian, but like pet rescue center to work there, basically to help out this lady named Finley, who he thinks is an older lady because he's made a promise to her father to help her and to really help her with this treasure hunt idea. But the problem comes that she's not like a 50-year-old lady like he thought she was. She is actually just about to turn 30, and he is feeling very attracted to her. And he's like, I can't be in this position. I don't want to be in a relationship right now. It's very interesting. I really enjoy this treasure hunting storyline. It was a bit bigger, but I did not mind at all. I loved it. And I am putting it in my TBR clue board as well as the prompt of like a fave, which I am now reinterpreting as I'm currently watching the Curse of Oak Island series, and it's like a treasure hunting series. So that's one of my favorite TV shows to watch right now. So I'm going to do a treasure hunting book like a treasure hunting TV show. That's what I'm doing. But Turn to Me was brilliant. I really loved how it had this treasure hunting element, but it also had other elements of getting reacquainted with society and how prison can really impact you and how different relationships should change throughout that time. It was really interesting, but I also loved that it had a secondary relationship. And that's something I love in books. It's one of those tropes I cannot, like if there's a secondary relationship in there, I will just like love that book even more. So this book had Benjamin and Akira. So Ben and Akira, who Ben in the book previously, which I did have an arc as well, of at least, but Ben is someone who had his heart broken in a previous book. He meets Akira, who is very much attracted to him, but she tells him right up front that she is dealing with a chronic illness because she almost died of the flu. I love that that was represented out and open, like she told him right out there, and I love that that was just talked about. So it was really cool to see that as a character just living her life, but she was still dealing with the after effects of having a very chronic and very serious disease. Or very serious illness, I should say. And then having the ramifications after. So I really liked that. But then also having Ben who's like discovering that, you know, he can be attracted to another woman after his heart was broken. And it was just so interesting to see this couple and this like representation. I really loved that couple and how they were just so fun to watch. But also I loved Akira's representation of chronic fatigue or something along those lines. So great book. I loved book 3 so much. Such a good book. And I loved everything about it. The last book that I read that was an arc is Sold on Love by Kathleen Fuller. This one doesn't come out till August, but I was like, I want to read it, so I'm going to read it now before I lose interest. And this one, I think might be the last book in the series, but I actually don't after reading the third book, like after reading Sold on Love, because there's a fourth girl in the friend group, and she might be set up for a relationship in the next book. I think there might be another book. But I'm really happy with this. So this book follows Harper, who is a real estate agent, and she is struggling in a lot of personal relationships, specifically with her family. And then you also have Rusty, who is a mechanic, and he feels like she is way out of his league, but she is just so amazing. So they are really kind of becoming friends throughout this time as her car always breaks down. He's always there to try and fix her car, and they are just so opposite, but it worked so well. I loved so many things about this book. It was just so trope filled that I like, but at the same time, it didn't feel like heavy handed. I think this one really handled relationships in a well done way, but also, I'm sorry if I'm not speaking correctly either. Like, I'm just having a migraine right now, but I wanted to share my thoughts. I also liked that this one had an element of time, like passing on. So it would be like, you know, there was the first event of the book happened, and then 2 months later, it would be the next thing. So it had some gradual progression, and I really enjoyed that element as well. Because if you know me, my romances, I hate like jumping the gun and being like really too fast in a relationship. So I really liked this. I gave it 5 stars as well because I just thought it was so brilliant. I gave the other 2 books in the series 4 stars, but this one, I just thought it was just so, so great. I loved how it discussed certain things. I loved how it talked about family and responsibility, but also how you love and you care for those around you. Rusty's grandfather was so funny, and he's taking care of his grandfather, or his grandfather's living with him, and it was just spectacular. I thought it was just so much fun. And if there is a fourth book, I will definitely be reading it. I cannot wait to read more about this town if there is another book. So for non-arcs, I read The Case of the Left-Handed Lady by Enola Holmes. I read this with Chris from Chris's Corner. I will link their channel down below. We read it because I noticed that they had it on their TBR, and I have been not picking up the sequel since last July. So I was like, I should probably do that. So this one was very similar to book one, where it had a lot of Enola and not a lot of mystery. And I think that that's my concern with the series, or maybe not concern, but my my struggle, maybe we should say, because the struggle with this is that it's so character driven, and yet it's called The Case of the Left-Handed Lady, and yet we barely got any of the case. I'm hoping that as the series progresses, we will be able to see more and more of the actual mysteries, because the mysteries is definitely lacking. It was a 3-star because it was just so non-mysterious. I did enjoy Enola's character, and I liked the development of that. But I also noticed that this book definitely has some little bits of swearing, and I thought this book was a middle grade, not like a YA. I think that this is definitely a book that if you were considering this for a middle grade book, you might want to do high middle grade and or YA, because it's not that middle grade. There are like definite parts, but Enola is like 14 and definitely is, I think, going up there. So yeah, 3 stars, and I'm hoping the series will get better. Chris and I have decided to read the continuing series throughout the rest of the year until book 8 comes out. So it'll be great to finish off that series this year, or at least get up to date. So I'll be reading that series every month, or at least one book every month for at least until September. I also read Peril at Owl Park by Marthe Jocelyn. This is the second book in the Aggie Morton series, and I thoroughly love this one, gave it 5 stars. Such a great one, such a great one. I love little Agatha Christie as a little detective with Hector Perrot. This one follows them as they go to Aggie's sister's house for Christmas, and things don't go great. It's very tragic, and there's a theater company that comes, and it is just very interesting. It kind of follows the series, like the structure of A Hercule Poirot's Christmas in a little bit of a way, but at the same time it's not the same style. It follows like section by section, is called, you know, the day of what, like December 23rd, December 24th, but there are chapters within that, as Hercule Poirot's Christmas does not have chapters within those days. So it's kind of a similar fashion. I really enjoyed this one, and I'm definitely giving it 5 stars. I've already bought book 3 because there was an Audible sale, and I'm like, I definitely need to read more of this series. So I'm very excited to continue on. My last non-physical book was The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. So I read this one specifically because I wanted a book set in the future for the Magical Readathon, and I definitely didn't understand a lot of it. I mean, I understood the language I was reading. It's in English. But it was like, okay, I kind of got it, but I also was like, wow, that's really far out there. It is a Victorian novel set in like 23,000 or something, I think. I'm giving it 3 stars, but I just honestly didn't really understand a lot of what I was reading. So I am giving it like a 3. I think it just is not like my kind of sci-fi, and I'm okay with that. Time traveling is not my kind of sci-fi I found. I have found other sci-fi that works better for me, and I'm okay with that for the most part. I have tried other ones though, and I'm happy to try around. So I'm thankful that this one at least I've tried, and I can say that this is not the book for me. The last book that I can talk about, and I did not finish this last, but I have finished The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Such a good book, 5 stars. I don't know what I was holding off on finishing this book. I loved this book. Well, there were certain parts that were hard to get me sucked in, I guess, at the beginning, but I definitely felt invested as we went on. This one kept my interest. It kept me going, and I thoroughly loved this idea of the girl who can never be remembered, but the way that she would have to live her life. And then as she meets people throughout the book, how that would impact her story. Also, without dying 300 years later, how would that impact her mentality and her way of socializing and all of these different things. It was just really interesting, and my book club had a big discussion about it. And it was really interesting to discuss with a book club and how we would react in our normal lives. So I thought this was a fascinating book. I gave it 5 stars. It's not my kind of thing. And it felt kind of time travel-y, but not, because it was more of her just going throughout the ages and just her mentality changing. So I really love this one. I did not expect to. This isn't maybe what I'd call an all-time favorite, but I definitely am giving it 5 stars because it hooked me and it kept me interested the whole time, except for maybe the beginning. But I really love the premise and what it was kind of speaking about. So very incredible. So all in all, so far this month, I've read 6 sequels or continuation books, or books that I'm up to date in the end of the series now, which is really great, and only 2 standalones, which I think is really wonderful. I am very happy with how far I've gotten in this month, and I'm happy with the books I've read because so many of them have been 5 stars, and I'm happy that I am picking up what I want to read because I am giving them good ratings because those are the ones I'm in the mood for, which I'm really happy about. So I am so thankful that I have decided to pick up the books I want when I want them, including arcs that might not be coming out right away, but I'm okay with that. So please let me know down below what you've been reading in April, if they've been wonderful or not. If you've been reading any of these books for the Magical Readathon, I've been definitely picking books that fit those prompts, sometimes more than others, but I'm shifting things around. Please let me know, as I said, what you'll be reading for those. And if you'd like to, please subscribe if you would like, and like this video if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment down below. I'd always appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.